Welcome back, class 10th. We have started with chapter 14th, Statistics, from your NCERT book. We learned how to find out the mean of grouped data using direct method and using shortcut method, also known as assumed mean method. Now we are going to discuss the third method, which is the step deviation method. Again, I will take an example to demonstrate how to apply step deviation method in order to find out the mean for grouped data. Suppose you've been given classes as 100 to 104, 104 to 108, 108 to 112, 112 to 116, 116 to 120, and the respective frequencies are 15, 20, 32, 18 and 15. Now let us do it step by step. Step number 1 is to find out the class marks. That means the midpoint of each of the class intervals, and to do so, to find out the class marks, you add the lower limit and the upper limit. The sum is divided by 2. So 100 and 104 added, the total divided by 2. So the class mark comes out to be 102 for the first class, 106 for the second class, then for 108 to 112, 110, then 114, then 118. If we were using the direct method, we would have used the frequency and the class marks. We would find the product and then we would apply the formula for direct method. If we were using shortcut method or assumed mean method, we would assume one of these values as the assumed mean and then we would find out deviations. Then we use deviations with frequencies. We are not using direct method, so I have to move to the next step, which is to find out deviations. So step number 2, I assume a mean, a value from the class marks is assumed as the mean, and then I find out the deviations of all these observations with the assumed mean. So let us say this is the assumed mean. So step number 2 will be to find out the deviations. I will be subtracting 110 from all of these. So according to that, I get 102 minus 110, this is minus 8, 106 minus 110, this is minus 4, 110 minus 110 gives me 0, 114 minus 110 gives me 4, 118 minus 110 gives me 8. So if I were using a direct method, I would have done till here, I would have used these two. If I were using shortcut method, I would be using the deviations with the frequency. I would find their product and then I'll apply the formula to find out the mean. Now I'm not using direct method, I'm not using shortcut method, I'm using step deviation method. So after I have the deviations, I move another step, which is to divide these deviations with the class size. So these are the deviations. I'll be dividing these values with the class size. If you observe the classes, the class size means the difference between the upper limit and the lower limit is 4. So I'll be dividing all of these deviations, the differences, with 4. In case the class sizes are unequal, you can divide by a common factor for the differences. So let us find out let's calculate the values for the third step. These will be the quotients obtained by dividing the differences, the deviations, by the class size, and these are represented by UI. So these will be DI divided by H. The deviations will be divided by H. H here is the class size. So let us divide all of these values with 4. Minus 8 divided by 4 gives me minus 2. Minus 4 divided by 4 is minus 1. 0 divided by 4 is 0. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2. Now in shortcut method, frequency is used with class marks. In assumed mean method, frequency is used with deviation. Now I have moved one step further. So for step deviation method, I'll be using the frequencies with UIs. So the next step is to find out the product of Fi and Ui. That will be step 4. To find out the product of the frequencies with Ui. So let's multiply the frequency with the quotients obtained. Be very careful. So 15 into minus 2 gives me minus 30. 20 into minus 1 gives me minus 20. 32 into 0 gives me 0. 18 into 1 gives me 18. 15 into 2 gives me 30. Now I need the total for this and this. I need these two totals. This is step number 5. Calculate the total of the frequencies and calculate the total of this product Fi Ui. Now since I have positive and negative values, calculate the total very carefully. For the negative values I get minus 50. For the positive values I get 48, and the total becomes minus 2. From the frequencies, the total comes out to be 100. This is step number 5, calculating the total. Now I apply the formula, which is step number 6. The mean is given by, we'll be using this total, the total of the products, divided by the number of observations. But what we are going to do is, to reach this step, we made certain changes to the xi's. We subtracted something, we divided by a number. So we have to make the adjustment. The number which was subtracted will be added back. The number by which we carried out the division will be multiplied back. So I'm going to multiply the values by h and add the assumed mean. A was subtracted, I'm going to add it back. I divided by h, I'm going to multiply with h now. This part will be solved first. Let's use the values and find our answer. Assumed mean was 110 plus the total of Fi Ui is minus 2 over the total of the frequencies is 100 into the class size is 4. Solve this. Rather than simplifying, I'm going to use the 100 to obtain a decimal number. So this becomes 4 2s are 8, negative and positive make a negative over 100. So this becomes 110 minus 0.08, which gives me 109.92. This will be the mean using step deviation method. Now if you want to just revise quickly, if we were using direct method, we would have used frequency with xi, and in that case the mean would be summation Fi xi upon summation Fi. This is the first method. If I were using shortcut method, I would be using the deviations instead of the xi's, the observations or the class marks. I would be using deviations. I would multiply Fi with Di. So to find out the mean, I would use Fi Di product totaled over the sum of frequencies, the number of observations. Since to obtain the deviations I had subtracted a value, I would be adding that back. This is the second method. And this here is the third method, where I have obtained UIs. I have moved one step further. From deviations, I moved to UIs. I have used UIs this time. So I calculated the product of fi with ui, and then I used it to find out the mean. Fi ui product total over the number of frequencies, which is the number of observations, and this value will be multiplied with h because we obtained ui by dividing by h. And since I had subtracted a value, I have to add that value back. So compare and then practice how you will use the three methods. In case the question indicates which method you have to use, you will be solving the question with that particular method. Otherwise, it's your choice, whichever you find easier. Now the thing is, the more you work here, the less a work will be here. See, the values have been reduced to very small values over here. If you were using direct method, you would be multiplying frequencies with these large values. If you were using second method, shortcut method, you would be multiplying frequencies with these values, reduced values. Now further I've reduced these values to very small values. So you work a little here so that the work done to be here is reduced.